My husband's brother casually demanded, "Since you're earning more now, you should cover my rent. It's only fair." My husband smirked and added, "He's family, you have to help." I nodded calmly and replied, "You're right," which is exactly why I made a financial adjustment. Their jaws dropped in shock when they realized what I had just cut off. I'm a 34-year-old woman who's been married to my husband, Mark, who's 36, for 10 years. In the beginning, things were fine. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. Mark earned more than me for most of our marriage, and I never minded. I was happy in my lower-paying job because I loved what I did. Mark never had an issue with our financial setup until I started earning more. About 2 years ago, I switched jobs and climbed the ladder quickly, so now I make twice as much as Mark. I never flaunted my new salary, and our daily routine hardly changed. I still contributed the same share to our joint expenses, and we kept a joint account for bills. I never made him feel like he should pay more just because I was earning extra. In fact, I ended up covering more of the fun expenses like vacations, splurges, and little extras here and there, and that was my mistake. The moment people see you making money, they start feeling entitled to it. Enter Mark's brother, Mike. Mike, 38, has never really had his life together. He bounces between jobs, never lasts more than a few months at one place, and hops from one failed relationship to the next. He's the kind of guy who always has an excuse. His boss was unfair, his coworkers were lazy, his girlfriend was controlling. It's never his fault. Somehow, every few years, he ends up crashing at our place. What started as a few weeks always turned into months. Of course, we've lent him money, paid some of his bills, and even let him use one of our cars when he said he was trying to get back on his feet. Spoiler alert, he never did. After I got my raise, Mike's attitude shifted. At first, he made little snide remarks like, "Must be nice to have extra cash now," or, "I'd love a job where you just sit around making bank." Then he tested the waters by asking outright for money. "Hey, I'm in a bit of a bind. I just need $500 to cover some stuff. I'll pay you back." I said no, and he sulked for days. I figured that was the end of it. But it wasn't. One night, Mike showed up for dinner unannounced, no invitation, just like always. I was already annoyed because I knew he was going to ask for something. Sure enough, halfway through dinner, he leaned back, stretched, and said, "Since you're making so much now, you should cover my rent. It's only fair." I thought I must have misheard him. What? "Yeah, I mean, you've got extra money now, and I'm struggling. It's just $1,200 a month. That's nothing to you." I blinked, genuinely speechless at his audacity. Mike took my silence as hesitation and pressed on. "Come on, you guys have a nice house and a good life. I'm barely making it. Family should help each other, right?" I looked to Mark, expecting him to finally tell his brother to back off. To my shock, Mark just smirked and said, "He's family, babe. We've helped him before. What's the big deal?" Something snapped inside me. I wasn't even really angry at Mike. I mean, I was, but I expected this from him. What I didn't expect was Mark backing him up. This was my husband, the man I built a life with, who just a year ago had no issues with our finances. Now that I made more, suddenly I was expected to shoulder even more responsibility. I took a slow breath and forced a smile. "You're right," I said calmly. "Family helps each other. I'll make a financial adjustment so we can help Mike." Mike grinned, and Mark looked relieved. They should have known better. The next morning at work, I made some changes. First, I called our bank. Although we had a joint account for bills, my paycheck was deposited into my personal account before I transferred my share. I decided to cut Mark off from my personal account completely. I moved exactly what I needed for my share of expenses into the joint account, and nothing more. Next, I reviewed all our expenses. Guess what I found? I'd been covering way more than I realized. Netflix on my card, Hulu on my card, Amazon Prime on my card, Mark's gym membership on my card, his car insurance on my card, and even his credit card, where I was a co-signer. I canceled everything non-essential. Then I made sure Mike got what he wanted. I found a cheap one-bedroom apartment in a not-so-great area, paid the deposit, and covered his first and last month's rent in his name. The lease was in his name, the landlord had his info, and I made sure they knew not to contact me for anything. That night, Mark tried to watch Netflix. "Hey, did you forget to pay?" he asked. I shrugged. "Oh, I made a financial adjustment." The next morning at the gym, his key fob didn't work. What the hell? While sipping my coffee, I explained, "Financial adjustment." Then his car insurance company called about a missed payment. He turned to me, furious. "Did you cancel my insurance?" he yelled. "No, I just stopped paying for it," I replied. Mark lost it, shouting about how he needed those services, how it wasn't fair, how I was punishing him for helping his brother. I just smiled and said, "Don't worry, Mike's rent is covered now. Family helps each other, right?" His face was absolutely priceless. Then I pulled out the lease agreement for Mike's new apartment. Oh, and good news, Mike has his own place now. He moves in next week. Mark paled, Mike turned red, and I was just getting started. The moment I put that decision on the table, the mood in the house shifted. Mike shot up from his chair like I'd set him on fire. "What the hell is this?" he barked, snatching the papers. "Your new apartment," I said smoothly. "You wanted rent covered. Now it's first and last month, all set. You move in next week." Mark's face twisted in confusion before morphing into something nastier. That's not what we meant, he snapped. Mike, still clutching the lease like it was a death sentence, waved it around like a lunatic. I didn't want to live alone. I thought I'd just need a little help, not an eviction notice from my own family. I tilted my head, feigning innocence. Oh, but you said it's only fair since I make more, and Mark agreed. I laid it out clearly. I had found a solution. Mark slammed his hands on the table. This is insane. You didn't even talk to me about this. I let out a dry laugh. Did you talk to me before offering up my money like it was yours? There was silence, then Mike scoffed and shook his head. This is why women shouldn't make more than their husbands, he muttered under his breath. I froze. Mark didn't even react. Slowly, I turned to face Mike, and he must have realized he'd messed up because his smug grin faltered. What was that? I asked in an eerily calm voice. Mike stepped back, but his ego got the better of him. I said it, this is why women who earn more start acting like they run the show, he repeated. I smiled. A slow, deliberate, dangerous smile. Leaning closer, I said sweetly, oh, Mike, you have no idea how much worse this is about to get for you. I spent the next 2 days fine-tuning my plan. Step 1 was a wake-up call. I called Mike's new landlord and arranged for him to get his keys early. Then, I packed up every single item from our house, his clothes, his gaming console, even his ridiculous collection of soda cans, and delivered them to his new apartment without any warning. I even left a sticky note on top, your new kingdom, enjoy. When Mike came home that night and discovered all his stuff was gone, he lost it. Where's my stuff? At your place? I replied without even looking up from my book. Mark was rubbing his temples like he was about to have an aneurysm. Mike stormed over, yelling, you can't just throw me out. I didn't throw you out, I said calmly. I moved you into your new, fully paid-off place. Why aren't you thanking me? That's when I noticed. Mike wasn't just angry, he was terrified. It hit me that he wasn't using us only for money. He had nowhere else to go, no friends, no savings, no girlfriend to lean on. For the first time in his life, he was utterly alone, and he hated it. The next morning, Mark woke up and reached for his phone. Hey, my phone bill isn't paid, he complained. Oh, right, I said nonchalantly. I took my name off that too. Now it's in your hands. He groaned, come on, babe, this is getting ridiculous. I slid my coffee across the counter. You called me ridiculous when I refused to pay for your brother's rent. Now I'm just making things fair. His jaw clenched, he had nothing to say. Then he tried one more move. Fine, if you don't want to help my brother, at least keep things the way they were for us. This isn't just about him anymore. I couldn't help but laugh. Oh, Mark, I said, shaking my head, you were fine with everything when it suited you, but now that you're feeling it too, suddenly it's a problem. He fell silent, and that's when I saw it in his eyes, a calculating look, not a desire to fix anything but to regain control. I stared at him for a long moment before making one final adjustment. I called a lawyer. I was this close to ending our marriage cleanly. I thought I had everything planned, but I wasn't ready for what happened next. A week after I cut Mark off financially, he came home drunk and slurring his words, furious. You're destroying our family, he muttered, slamming his keys on the counter. I stayed calm. No, Mark, you destroyed it when you let your brother treat me like a wallet. He let out a bitter laugh and ran a hand through his hair. You really think you're going to be fine without me? That caught me off guard. Excuse me, he leaned in with an overly wide smile. You think you've got it all figured out, huh? You think you're so smart and independent, but guess what, sweetheart, that lawyer you called? He's our lawyer. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? I asked. Mark grinned. You didn't think I'd see this coming, did you? You didn't think I was planning my own moves? My stomach dropped when he added, I've been moving money around too. I felt like the room had tilted sideways. Mark took a slow sip of his beer, enjoying every moment. Let's just say if you try to leave, it won't be as easy as you think. His words sent a chill down my spine. I knew what he was doing, but I hadn't realized the extent of his damage. My first instinct was to grab my laptop and check our accounts, but I refused to let him see me panic. Instead, I leaned back against the counter, crossed my arms, and stared him down. Explain, I said evenly. Mark took his time, sipping his beer like he was completely in charge. While you were busy making your adjustments, I made a few of my own. You think you're clever, but you forgot one thing. We're still legally married. My stomach tightened. I asked, what do you mean, with a blank face? Mark smirked. So, babe, you're not the only one who can play the money game. I've been adjusting too, little by little, a transfer here, a withdrawal there. Nothing big enough to raise suspicion, just enough extra padding from our joint account. I clenched my jaw. How much? He grinned, and I stayed silent. That night, I didn't say another word. Instead, I waited until Mark passed out drunk on the couch. I grabbed my laptop, logged into our accounts, and discovered over $15,000 missing, not all at once, but slowly drained over the past 6 months. He had been quietly siphoning money from our joint savings into an account in his name. And the worst part? The withdrawals began before the argument about Mike. This wasn't just about his brother. Mark had been preparing for this long before I ever cut him off. It was all planned, waiting for the moment I finally pushed back so he could push harder. I spent hours reviewing every transaction. Mark had been careless. He left trails showing exactly which accounts the money went into. And if I could see them, so could my lawyer. I should have felt relieved, but then I saw one more transaction that made my blood run cold, a $20,000 loan taken out in my name. That's when I realized Mark wasn't just draining our savings, he was planning to leave me buried in debt. My hands shook. This wasn't about rent or Mike. Mark was trying to financially ruin me, and I still didn't know why. I called my lawyer first thing in the morning and told them everything. They reassured me that we could trace the withdrawals, reclaim the money, and dispute the loan. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something. I needed proof. Then it struck me, Mark gets careless when he drinks. So I waited for the next 2 days, playing nice. I let him believe I was scared, that he had the upper hand. On the third night, after a few beers, I asked, "So, where's the money?" He laughed. "Why, you planning to take it back?" "No," I replied lightly, keeping my voice steady. "I just want to know how smart you really are." "Mark," I said. He smirked. "Oh, I'm smart. Babe, smarter than you. Smarter than you ever imagined." I tilted my head, and he leaned in to whisper his secrets. It wasn't only about the money or the loan. Mark had been plotting this for a year. Ever since I got my raise, he'd been moving things behind my back. You see, he wasn't just seeing someone, he was supporting her with our funds and that $20,000 loan taken in my name. It wasn't for him, it was for her. I felt as if I'd been punched in the gut. Mark leaned back, watching my face, waiting for me to lose it, to break down. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled, because Mark had just written his own ticket. There he was, smirking as if he'd just won some high-stakes game. He thought he had me cornered, that I'd cry, scream, or beg. But I didn't. I slowly sipped my wine, set the glass down, and said, "Wow, you really thought you could get away with this, huh, Mark?" His smirk wavered for a second. "What's that supposed to mean?" I leaned in, my voice dripping with faux affection. "It means, sweetheart, that while you were busy moving money, I've been moving things too." His face drained of color. "What are you talking about?" he stammered. I stood up, walked over to my bag, and pulled out a folder. "This," I said, placing it in front of him, "is everything I've collected over the past week. Bank statements, loan documents, transfers made in my name." His face turned ashen. "Where did you get this?" "I have my ways," I replied simply. He began flipping through the papers, his breathing growing heavier. Then I delivered the final blow. I pulled out another document and said, "This is proof of your little affair." His eyes shot up. "You're lying." I tossed the document onto the table. It was a bank transfer receipt, from our account to some unknown woman's account, with the note, "Rent. My love, can't wait to see you again." I let that sink in. Mark's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. I interrupted, raising my hand. "Don't lie. Don't try to spin this. You're caught. Own it." A moment of silence passed until a voice from the hallway said, "Well, this is awkward." I turned, and there stood Mike in the doorway. Someone I'd completely forgotten was still living here. Mike strolled in lazily, running his fingers through his hair as if he'd just woken up. Looking between us, he said, "Mark's been messing around. Figures." Mark's head snapped toward him. "Shut the hell up, Mike. This isn't your business." Mike laughed. "Oh, no man, it definitely is." He pulled out his phone and waved it around. I heard everything from the hallway, and I recorded it too. My eyebrows shot up. "You recorded it, Mike?" He shrugged. "Hey, I might be a mess, but I'm not stupid. I had a hunch Mark was screwing you over, but damn, this is next level." Mark lost it. He lunged at Mike, grabbing his shirt. "Delete it," Mike challenged, grinning. I should have stepped in, but I let them fight. Mark threw the first punch, but Mike was bigger, shoving Mark back until he crashed into the kitchen counter. Bottles and glasses shattered everywhere. Mark staggered, wiping his bleeding lip. "You bastard, Mike," he spat. Mike scoffed. "You're the one who spent years treating me like a loser while you were out here playing sugar daddy. With our joint money." Mark looked at me, desperate. "Are you really going to let him do this?" I crossed my arms. "I didn't tell you to record him, but I'm definitely not stopping him." Mark turned red, realizing he was trapped, and then did what all cowards do. He ran, grabbed his keys, stormed out, and slammed the door so hard the wall shook. For the first time in years, silence fell over my house. Mike let out a low whistle. Well, that was a train wreck. I turned to him. "You actually recorded it?" He held up his phone. Crystal clear audio. "Want me to send it to your lawyer?" I blinked. Mike, the mooch, the screw-up, the walking disaster, had just sealed Mark's fate. "Yeah," I said, exhaling, "send it." I filed for divorce the next morning. With the financial records, the loan fraud, and the affair, Mark had no leg to stand on. My lawyer froze our accounts before he could take another dime. Since the loan was in my name, but the money went to his mistress, the bank opened a fraud case. Mark was done. And the mistress? She dumped him the moment his money dried up. Let that sink in. Mark, the guy who thought he was so clever, ended up with nothing. Last I heard, he had to move back in with his parents, who certainly weren't thrilled. And because he was completely broke, he ended up borrowing money from Mike. Let that sink in. Mike, the guy Mark always looked down on, had to lend him cash. Mike, still a mess, but slightly less of one, eventually found a job and paid back half of what he owed. Honestly, I think for the first time in his life, he actually learned something. As for me, I'm free financially, emotionally, mentally. And let me tell you, I've never slept better. I couldn't shake the adrenaline that night, and in the following days, everything shifted into a blur of phone calls, lawyer meetings, and quiet reflections. The divorce became final, and with every signature on the paperwork, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. I decided it was time to reclaim my life completely. One chilly morning, I sat in a cozy cafe with my lawyer, watching the steam rise from my coffee as we reviewed the final documents. "It's done," I murmured, almost in disbelief. My lawyer nodded. "You've taken back control, and now it's time for you to rebuild." I smiled, knowing that each page signified not just the end of a toxic chapter, but the start of something new. Later that week, I ran into an old friend, Lisa, at the local park. She noticed the light in my eyes that had been missing for so long. "You seem different, more at peace," she said. I confessed, I finally walked away from a mess that I never thought I'd escape. Lisa embraced me warmly. Sometimes you have to let go of the past to let the future in. Meanwhile, Mark's world continued to crumble. He struggled with the fallout, his parents' disappointment, his financial ruin, and the isolation of having no one to rely on. His desperate attempts to mend broken bridges only pushed people further away. Mike, surprisingly, stepped up too, but not to help Mark, rather, he helped me tie up loose ends and file the final fraud reports with the bank. In doing so, he too began to realize that sometimes even mistakes can lead to unexpected growth. As spring turned into summer, I focused on rebuilding my life on my own terms. I started taking evening classes in business management, an old dream I had put aside, and even began dating again, this time choosing partners who respected and valued me. Every small victory, from reclaiming my financial independence to rediscovering my self-worth, was a testament to the strength I'd always had. One sunny afternoon, as I strolled along the river with a newfound sense of freedom, I thought about all that had transpired. The heartbreak, the betrayal, and the chaos had been painful, but they had also been the catalyst for profound personal growth. I had learned that true freedom comes not from money or validation, but from embracing your own power to change your life. In the end, it wasn't about revenge or the satisfaction of exposing Mark's lies. It was about me finally living a life free of deceit and manipulation. With clarity and resolve, I stepped forward into a future built on my own terms, knowing that I had the strength to overcome anything life threw my way.